a lot of us were expecting this, but Shadows in Valhalla might actually be one of the greatest sets of 2018. What's going on, guys? It's Cimo. So today we're going to be talking about the absurdly insane reprints coming out in Shadows in Valhalla. Now, Shadows in Valhalla was just going to be one of those side sets that was supposed to have the Valkyrie cards and the Ninja cards, but it came out that they spoiled the entire set because the world's competitors were able to get boxes of Shadows in Valhalla early. And so, as a result of that, we got to see the entire set. And holy shit, the reprints in here are ridiculous. So before we get into that, I want to give a huge shout out to my newest patrons as always. So there's a lot of them, so big shout outs today to Punate's mom, Christoph, Mario, Cameron, Zach, and big shout outs to Seb G. You guys are the reason that this channel is growing strong. And if you guys want to help support me in the channel either through Patreon or through becoming a YouTube channel member to get your Cimo badge next to your name in the comments, then check out the links in the description below. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. So, Shadows in Valhalla, oh my god, this is just crazy because when it comes to creating and constructing a good booster set, I feel like I have three criteria that set has to meet. The set has to essentially have new cards that I personally would prefer to be playable on a competitive level, but I guess if you have a nice, kind of across the spectrum type of, playability in terms of the casual and the competitive format, that's kind of the best of both worlds, right? But then in addition to that, it also needs to have reprints of cards that are just like absurdly expensive for no reason, but also reprints of cards that are rarity bumping those older cards to kind of help players bling out their decks. And Shadows in Valhalla knocks all three of these just completely out of the water. So we're gonna go down each of these categories one by one to see how Shadows in Valhalla has essentially just become one of the greatest sets of the year. So, starting off with new cards. Well, Shadows in Valhalla definitely delivers with the new card category because initially, it started off with us just knowing about the Valkyries as well as the Ninjas. Now, the thing about the Valkyries is they're an anime archetype, and they're one of the anime archetypes that a lot of people have really been hoping that they would release one of these days, and now it's finally here. Like, I am a super competitive player, but even I'm excited for the Valkyries just because of the nostalgia that it evokes from my childhood. It's just something that I've really been looking forward to for a long time. And then you also have the Ninja cards, which, again, ninjas are a fan favorite archetype, and come on, they're fucking ninjas. Like, everyone loves ninjas, and I think what's really cool about this is from an art perspective, Konami does a really good job when it comes to like Japanese inspired figures. I guess if you're talking about samurais, ninjas, anything that's inspired by that, the artwork always just looks fantastic, and the ninjas are no exception to that rule. So I can appreciate that. Now, both Valkyries and ninjas aren't exactly the most competitive archetypes by any means. If you want to just mess around at locals or have some fun with friends, these are two archetypes you can definitely do that with. But the thing here is that there are actually some new cards that we got surprised with that are going to be playable as well, and those cards are the Outer Gods. Now, the Outer Gods are cards that we have been waiting for such a long time. Japan has had these, I believe, since Necros format. I mean, Outer God Nyarla is just one of the craziest cards ever. It does something very unique. It's rather niche, but it was able to abuse a card like Herald of Arclight, if my memory serves correctly, and that's really cool. The ability to detach Xyz materials and reattach ones from your graveyard to recur specific effects of graveyard triggers, I think that's a really neat effect that we could have taken advantage of in some particular formats. We just never had the opportunity to because the card had never been released. But even if you take that card out of the equation, we have Outer God as a thought. And other than being probably the biggest piece of meme material Konami could have ever given it, thanks to the name change, as a thought is a very powerful card. As soon as it's Xyz summon, which you're basically just going to place it on top of your Nyarla, then your opponent cannot activate monster effects for the rest of the turn. That's insane. That's such a powerful effect, and it's going to be one of those cards that a lot of people go back and look at, kind of like how they look at Utopia the Lightning, in a sense that, is this going to be relevant enough that this is going to come up, that it's worth playing an Outer God package just so I can play Azathoth, or just so I can play Lightning. The card is incredibly powerful. Now, it might be a little bit past its prime, but it's still such a powerful effect that I think it's something a lot of people are really going to look forward to. The last card that was announced that we kind of already knew about, but is something I still want to talk about, is the Alistair Link Monster. Now, this is huge because this is a card that, you know, if we had gotten the Link Vrains pack, would have already been released by now. But the Alistair Link Monster is incredibly good and actually makes Invoked Sky Striker, or even just takes Invoked variants in general, to the next level, because now you have an Invoked Link Monster that you're able to tutor into that not only searches Invocation, but just gives you more arrows, which means you could possibly double up into multiple copies of Makaba. And that's really powerful because we still have Makaba at 3 in the TCG, we still have Invocation at 3, we still have Alistair at 3, the OCG has some of these cards limited, so we might be able to play this deck at full power and see just how good of a deck it really is. Now that's it for the new cards, but that kind of transitions us rather easily into kind of just reprinting cards that were really expensive. And on the topic of Invoked, we are getting reprints of Makaba and Invocation in here as well. These were both like $15 to $20 cards, and now they're going to be so much more accessible because they're going to be printed at the super rare level, so you're probably going to be able to get them for like $5, hell, maybe even cheaper than that once the prices settle. But compared to the 15 to 20 bucks a copy you had to pay before, it makes the set so much more accessible to a much wider majority of the player base, and that's only a good thing. I mean, Invoked has been out for so long, I think since Fusion Enforcers, so now it's a good opportunity to reprint these cards and let the player base, especially the ones who might not have been able to afford these cards before, really have some fun with it. Hell, Magical Meltdown's in here as well, and that was like a $4 to $5 card just depending on the fluctuation. But then when you go to Rarity Bumps, you even have an Alistair the Invoker moving from super rare to secret rare, and the super rare Alistairs were super easy to acquire, but if you're excited about playing an Invoke deck, now you can bling out your strategy by getting those secret rare Alistairs. So there's even value for people who already have their Invoke decks, because now there's incentive for them to want to hollow out those decks and make them a lot more pretty. Now, there are some other cards I wanted to talk about because over half of the cards that are being printed in this set are just extreme value due to the fact that these were cards anywhere from like $7 upwards of like $35 to $40 depending on the card, and now it's going to be reprinted. I think most notably, Ash Blossom Joyous Spring is going to be a super rare in this set. Now, I'm a bit hesitant because I think that they might short print it, but even if they short print Ash Blossom in here, it is going to be a way for a large majority of the player base to be able to get Ash Blossom. Even after its reprint in Legendary Kaiba Collection, the card is still sitting at like a $35 to $40 price tag, so now having a super rare copy available, even if it brings it down to 20 bucks if it's short printed, that's still a lot better than where it was before, and I think that's a really good thing, just to be able to reduce that barrier to entry and allow more people to enter the game, especially at a competitive level. There are a lot of other cards here, though, I want to talk about as well. There's cards like High Speed Roid Chanbara. This was like a $17 to $20 secret rare for no reason, just because of the fact that it's only had a single printing, and because it's basically an OTK enabler once we get Needle Fiber for Sky Striker. It was also an OTK enabler and stuff like dinosaurs and things, but I just couldn't believe how absurdly expensive this card was. But now it's going to be a super rare, and it's probably only going to cost you a couple bucks, so tons of value there. You've also got stuff like White Dragon Ninja, a card that was $7 before. Elemental Hero Magma Neos, Chaos Neos, both of these were like $10 to $15 depending on the copy, sometimes even way more than that for first editions. You've got stuff like Vision Hero Trinity, Abyss Megalo getting its first holo printing that's not a secret rare. This card was like $13 for a Mosaic Rare Common, and now it's going to be a super rare. So for anyone looking to play Mermail without having to buy their super expensive Megalo, Megalos, here's your opportunity to do so. You've also got stuff like Mist Valley Apex Avian, Akashic Magician, you've got Cyber Dark Impact, a $40 secret rare just because it's only had a single printing in a set that's short printed secret rares. And yeah, some of the cards I'm talking about here have zero competitive viability, but if you're a collector or if you're someone who likes the Neos cards or likes the Cyber Dark cards, this is going to be your opportunity to get your hands on them without having to pay exorbitantly ridiculous prices just to acquire them. There's also stuff like Golden Bamboo Sword, which is a little bit of a meme, but it's only had a single printing at common, but now you're going to be able to get a super for probably a couple bucks once prices settle. Magic Planter, Advanced Dark, Urgent Ritual Art. These were all cards that were like $6 to $10, again, for no reason, but now they're going to be much easier to acquire. But wrapping up this video, I do want to talk about the rarity bumps, because these are just as important as the cards that got downgraded in rarity as a reprint, just to make them more widely available. I already mentioned Alistair the Invoker now as a secret rare, but there's also Wind Witch Icespell, Dragoonity Knight Vajrayana. We've got Gem Knight Seraphonite, El Shadal Winda, Shadal Fusion. I mean, these are all very good competitive level cards that could possibly see play depending on the format, and not only are they getting reprinted at a higher rarity, but they're also cards that were anywhere from like $6 to $10, maybe more depending on the circumstances. So not only is it going to be a higher rarity, but it's also going to be a lot easier to acquire because there's more copies of them coming into circulation. And when you really wrap it all together, when you take the new cards into account for both casual and competitive players, when you've got the new cards that are getting reprints that were just absurdly expensive prices, and then when you've got the reprints of cards by Rarity bumping them into higher rarities, but were still candidates just because they were more expensive than they should have been, this is an absolutely incredible set. Like, this is rivaling Battles of Legend 1 Light's Revenge. Like, do you guys remember how excited people were for that set? Because it had new cards, which were both casually and competitive friendly. It had reprints of cards that were absurdly expensive for no reason, but then you also rarity bumped cards that people were really excited about. Like, it basically hollowed out the entire Lightsworn archetype, and that's what was really cool. There was kind of something for everyone in this set, and I feel that Shadows in Valhalla is following suit in that same way. Now, one thing you do have to consider after all these prices I've been naming, you have to consider that once the set is released, these cards and these values aren't necessarily going to matter as much, because once they're available through Shadows in Valhalla, they're gonna be a lot cheaper. But I'm wanting to show you guys the perceived value of the cards that are in this set, because yeah, sure, Ash Blossom is going to be $35 or $40 once this set gets released. It's probably gonna go down to like 15 or 20, maybe less, depending on how many Ash Blossoms enter circulation. But you guys have to realize that these cards used to be so expensive before, and there was no other way to obtain them, that there's going to be an inherent demand to an extent, and it's really cool that people are now going to be able to get their hands on them, even though they only had one printing previously. I think this set is just a home run, just because there's really something for everyone. There's new cards for both the casual players as well as the competitive players, so you're satisfying both sides of the spectrum. You've got old cards getting reprinted that used to be expensive that now the players are going to much easily be able to get their hands on, and then you've got old cards getting reprinted at higher rarities that people can really get excited about, because even if they have all the cards just on the set list, they're going to be able to have something to go and hollow out their decks. But guys, those are just my thoughts. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think about Shadows in Valhalla as a whole. I'd really love to hear your thoughts. Guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Be sure to like the video as always. Subscribe to the channel for more amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content. And if you found this video informative, consider backing me on Patreon or becoming a YouTube channel member, because just by pledging any amount, you're investing in my ability to continue bringing you amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content. So thanks so much again, and we'll see you next time.